Hello folks, it is Wednesday. Let's jump into some hobby nightmares, shall we? Hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful week. Let's get on with it with our first hobby nightmare of the day, and it comes from Dennis. He says, Dear North, please call me Dennis. I have done, thank you. Thank you for reading my hobby nightmare. That, in the end, has no nightmare in it regarding the hobby, but outside of it. As hydration is important, please enjoy a beverage of your choice as you wish. I will say, this one has some really cool model pictures attached to it, so I will show those in a minute. My journey started 2 years ago when my wife and I were visiting a Christmas market and came across a Games Workshop store nearby, and my wife said, and I quote, "Let's go in and have a little look around," unquote. I've never heard of Warhammer or anything related to it, but was totally hooked from the first second I walked in there. We did not buy anything, as I refused to be pushed into it by the manager, but I started watching lore videos, gameplays, and also your channel. So let me put in a thank you, North, for 2 great years of entertainment. I've been here longer than that, son. Been here longer than that. Get in that backlog. Get in that backlog. Over the next year, I increased my knowledge more and more, and as Christmas came around again, I made the decision to buy us 2 combat patrols. For her, Sisters of Battle, and for myself, Tau. Yes, you were totally right in your last What Your Faction Says About You. I love problem solving and play chess on a competitive level during school. We started building and painting them together, but she lost interest after a few weeks. I instead finished it quite fast and started collecting Tau towards a complete 2,000 points of army. It was really as I haven't done anything related ever. I don't know what that means. It was really as I haven't done anything related ever. Okay. It was really cool, I'm going to say. Alright. At this point, I have to give you some background about myself. I'm 40 years old, ex-military, and work now as a project manager at a big company, and up to this point, I spent all of my life as an amateur cyclist, training, competing, and doing around 2,500 kilometers a year. This gave me fulfillment, and I could work on myself too. That's cool, man. That's cool. I've noted that ex-military dudes tend to need something else. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're always going out of their way to find something to pour their energy into. You know? They tend to be very good workers, which is why a lot of companies want them, right? Especially if you're in leadership. If you were a mook, you know what I mean? If you were an infantryman, maybe not, right? Because you're one of the rabble. But if you were like an officer or something, and you worked your way up, you're wanted by quite a lot of people. Because, you know, you've got discipline, you've got leadership skills in like really hot situations. And a lot of you guys have a lot of pumped up energy that you need to, you know, turn to something, to do something, right? Anyway. Around February, I felt ill more and more and could not keep up with my training schedule and felt weaker each day. In parallel, I had more time to work on my minis, I suppose. As this progressed, I visited some doctors, and not long after that, the reason was found. The diagnosis was a 5cm tumour in my lung. My world collapsed as I could not continue my normal living and cycling, not to mention the fear that it would be a malignant tumour or if it could be removed. I spent all of my time working on minis, learning the game, and waiting for the depression to come full force. But to my wife's and my surprise, I managed to completely dodge it. I will not give this only towards the new hobby, but I'm sure it helped. I met new people, no neckbeards, no nightmares, saw new things I could learn, and most importantly, I had something I could fill my normally 20 to 30 hour training time with. Instead of just sitting on the couch and waiting for the new results and the date for an operation. 2 months later, the tumour was removed, and again, I had even more time as I was sick at home waiting for my body to recover with a light training comeback. Dude, doing training after this is victory. My god. I'm serious, man. Like, doing training after this is like you're winning the jackpot. 2 months later, okay, fast forward 6 months after the operation, and I'm back on a bike. Not as good as before, and that will not recover. I have 4,500 points of Tau, and painted and joined an established hobby group. So that was my journey, and how the hobby helped me to overcome a hard time. As you can imagine, I'm unbelievably proud of this. I have done and attached some pictures. Have a good time, and thanks for sharing this with the community. Cheers, Dennis. Alright, let's have a little look at your pictures that made me incredibly salty, because you are very new, and these are better than most of the things I've ever painted. So, there we go. I mean, you can see why a guy gets salty, right? It's ridiculous. How you knew? He's been here for a few years, dude. But I'm guessing, like, a lot of hard work and practice goes in, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really practice. I have my own... I pick up things, you know? And my models aren't bad, by any means, right? They are pretty good on the tabletop. And they really do pass the arm test for games. People, like, I get compliments on them all the time. But these are the kinds of models where you can actually zoom into specific details, and they're like they've been done in a studio. Like, Tau players will be getting incredibly hard right now. If they could without alien feet, but there we go. That is a cool tank, man. That is one cool ass tank. I like that. I would never do Tau, but you know, I'm going to leave this on for a little bit, because these are amazing. These are really cool. Look at the detail in the rocks there. There's a guy hiding down there. Can you see him? There's a dude hiding down there underneath the Tau. Dude, go away, right? How are you new? So annoying. So annoying. Anyway, moving on. It is ad time. Let's jump in and let's give Minimaker some love, because, you know, they do a lot for the channel. So, let's dive in.
Folks, it is time to talk about a new partner here on the channel. This is Minimaker. You may have seen that the operator Shemek was on a video with me the other day, and he has kindly agreed to sponsor the channel, to come on board and make sure that you can get some really, really high quality 3D printed models. I would never recommend something to you that I don't also use myself, and as you can see here, I am now the proud owner of some amazing looking Bretonnian models. Not really Bretonnians, they're more knights, because I like knights and I don't like French knights. I don't like the way that they look, but these look amazing, and they're not even the highest quality that he does in his store. So if you're looking for any sort of 3D printed models in any sort of game that is out there that you may want to play, whether it be Grimdark Future or Age of Fantasy, any sort of proxies that you need for your Warhammer Fantasy battles, Warhammer 40k battles, anything that you need from over there that you want, a specific bespoke model that looks amazing on the tabletop, extremely highly detailed. Look at the saddlebags on this man. Look at the riz that he's marching on there with his bear encrusted shield. It's awesome. I love Minimaker. He is making sure that I have really cool knight minis to paint, and as you all know, I love Grey Knights, mainly in space. But I will definitely get some more Grey Knight models from this man, because his actual store is here. And I have been thinking of doing a Imperial Guard army for a while now. But, you know, the sculpts that are out there right now aren't very good. These ones, though, amazing. I'm going to do them just like in Predator. I'm going to have them all there. I'm going to get myself an Arnold Schwarzenegger style model. It's going to be fantastic. And with Minimaker's really cool control over quality, I can decide what kind of budget I'm working with. Am I working with budget, which means I get less detail, but it's a bit cheaper? Or am I working with a display quality model where I'm going to put them on the shelf and they're going to be amazing for my friends to look at? They're a bit more brittle, but they're really highly detailed. Or are they going to be in grey, like the knights I just showed you? I literally ordered those knights thinking they're not going to look like that. Dude, they looked just like they did in the file page. I was so impressed. So, if you want to get some models for yourself, try Minimaker out. It's an amazing service, and use the promo code Northern Exile, all in capital letters, all one word, to get yourself 10% off your order at checkout. They do worldwide shipping, worldwide, for €10. Yeah, an amazing service. Check them out, and thank you again, Minimaker, for sponsoring the channel. You guys do great work. Cheers.
I really do need to record a new ad for a Mini Maker, but I want to do it when my voice is actually not ravaged by, the lurgy. So I will get into that at some point. I will record a new one because I want to show off the army that I built. But I don't want to put my army on for posterity in a new ad while sounding like I'm dying. So let's jump into another Hobby Nightmare, shall we? With Raldaron, who is back again. Alright, excellent. Infantry veteran. My first Hobby Nightmare was the tournament Necron Scumbag. The second was the cheating Gilliman player, for those of you who want to remember who this guy is. Alright. This story is a deviation from my last two in not being about my precious Blood Angels, but being about role-playing games in general. Role-playing games have always appealed to me, even at a young age, but I didn't know if anybody else played it, let alone where to start looking for players. Alas, when I was young, me and all of my nerdy friends played Star Wars miniatures, the Wizards of the Coast one, before Disney bought Star Wars, and for some reason, I was afraid of role-playing games, and afraid that they were a bit too I was afraid RPGs were a bit too nerdy for my friends. Okay, sorry mate. And I never brought up my desire to play them to my friends. Years later, I enlisted in the Marines and went into Afghanistan. Dude, where do all of these... Nerds are strange, right? Nerds are very strange. This guy was scared of getting his friends into Star Wars, so he goes and joins the Marines. What? What's wrong with you people? Right? Full Metal Jacket time. He went into that. You ever seen that movie? That was him getting shouted at by some psycho. He would rather do that than tell his friends, hey guys, you want to play this Star Wars RPG I found? Nerds are weird, man. And nerds are, strangely, some of the bravest people I know. Because they're scared of really stupid things, but then they'll go and do stuff like this. At the drop of a hat. Yeah, I'll go in the Marines, no problem. Right? I'll go in the Corps. No problem at all. Absolutely no problem. Just remember, for all of you Marines out there who've seen that movie, Eskimo Pussy is mighty cold. Right, moving on. Years later, I enlisted in the Marines and went into Afghanistan. And this is where I will introduce our antagonist for today. Forgive me if it takes too long to get to the hobby side of this nightmare, but we will get there. Let's call him Bobert today. He was the private pile of our platoon, being an overweight, lazy individual who didn't have the fighting spirit nor willpower to work on himself, constantly drawing attention to himself and others around him while he underperforms in his job. He is a gay man who married a black man that was a part of my hometown high school graduating class. Small world, right? And got moved into my unit after serving 2 years longer than me. He had pale white skin, a shaved head, and a receding hairline, and was missing a few teeth, with a couple more teeth having dead black spots in them. Ew. Ew. He and I were on radio watch in the dead of night, which basically consists of two guys staying awake to do radio checks with battalion command. Like, I know there's no hobby in this bit yet, but I know wargamers will love hearing about this kind of stuff, so we'll carry on. So we were alone for 6 hours in the company command, building, bored out of our minds. Naturally, we got to talking in an attempt to fight off our boredom and lack of sleep due to having gone out on patrol the previous day. I did not have a lot of experience being around a gay man before, and 2014 was a weird time for the acceptance movement. Less than a year or two ago, it was normal for people to use gay people as the butt of the joke at a minimum, and at worst, they were demonized, especially in the military. I unfortunately have an optimistic view on things and believe that everyone should be treated as equal. Your race, religion, class and sexuality should not determine how you are treated by your countrymen, but the content of your character should be what you are judged by. Dude, why is that unfortunately? That's a fortunate thing to do. You're a good person, right? Then again, I do believe this is the bog standard human response to most people in the world, but, you know, is what it is. As he and I sit there, I ask him to tell me how it feels to be an openly gay man in the military and other questions along the same lines, because I know he has been treated very poorly by most of the lower level leadership, on top of people talking poorly about him behind his back, and it made me empathise with him. However, I knew he lacked any motivation to improve at his job. Yeah, double-edged sword there. After we got talking and I got more comfortable with Bobert, I made the mistake of telling him a very personal story in which I was taken advantage of when I was very young. Wow. Okay. I guess that this lit up some sort of green light in his monkey brain as he began to ask various illicit questions regarding my body and personal habits when it comes to other people. For those of you who don't know what he means, sexual habits. He then began to make several propositions for sexual favours that grew more and more desperate, with each proposal being denied and being told flatly to stop asking. I was repressing my bisexuality at the time and blended in seamlessly with everybody else in my unit. Even if I was fully to terms with that stuff, I would never sleep with anybody who is married. But even if this guy wasn't, even while having no one else to sleep with due to being in a damn war zone, he is very much not my type. Throughout the rest of our deployment, a controversy came to light with multiple Marines claiming they were being sexually harassed by Bobert, propositioning them for favours. Unfortunately, these allegations were never formalised when Bobert threatened the chain of command with a fling of a sharp complaint, citing homophobia due to the vulgar nature of how much Marines swear, and that vocabulary included basically all the genuinely homophobic slurs. Of course it does. Yeah. You're Marines. You know? Right, okay, so the hobby is now here. This is where we get into the hobby. But before we dive in, I've known people in the military. I don't judge you, right? On edgy humour. I don't judge that at all. In fact, it's kind of the same thing as when I talk to my grandpa, right? He can come out with some pretty racist stuff. Just is what it is, right? He's from a different generation. But whenever I've seen him around people who aren't the same race as him, dude, he's fine. He's normal, right? He's friendly. He's exactly the same as he is with everybody else. It's just the way he was brought up, right? It's the same as if you're in the military too. I generally tend to cut you some slack, man. I do. Again, being in the military is not an excuse to be unpleasant to the people around you when you get out. That's an excuse, and you shouldn't use it. But, having little faux pas here and there because you think it's normal, because you've been surrounded by it for so long, that I can let you get away with. Do you know what I mean? So, no judgment here. So now we finally arrive at the actual hobby nightmare now that I've established my history with Bobert. Less than a year later, me and my roommate Red had been in the barracks for some time hanging out and playing video games on our time off, as he told me that Bobert was hosting a Pathfinder game at his house off base, and Red wanted me to come with him and try it out. Red and I both wanted to try our hand at playing a role-playing game for the first time, but I had reservations about going to Bobert's house, and I told him how I was one of the people he had harassed less than a year ago. Red then said that it shouldn't be a problem after he already almost got into trouble, plus Bobert's husband will be there, and surely he wouldn't do it again with his husband sitting at the very same table with the one I knew in high school. Sometimes you are interjecting things into the story that I don't know what that means. The very same table one I knew in high school. I don't know what that means. Moving on, anyway. He's not going to do it in front of his husband. Alright. Well, I'm willing to bet that his husband's in on it. Shall we see if I'm right? So, I swear I'm going to be right. Let's take bets. Am I going to be right? So, Red and I set off to go to Bobert and his husband Marcus's house for a game of Pathfinder. We settle in, check out their pet turtle, and sit down at their dinner table for the game. The group consists of me, Red, Bobert, Marcus, and 2 other Marines from my platoon. This session is basically just how to make characters due to all but 2 players not knowing how to play or make characters. Halfway through the session, things have been going great, and Marcus, the Dungeon Master, asks if we've been learning and if we would like to try and play next week, and we all said yes. So he then asks if we can create a group chat so we can all coordinate and plan our sessions. Well, so far so good, I'm surprised. Alright. As we gave our phone numbers to Marcus, I hesitated because this would allow Bobert to text me directly, but again, I thought he was only desperate and thought he could get away with it whilst he was oceans away from his husband, and surely wouldn't do it again now that we were back stateside. Not even 10 minutes after we made the group chat and verified our phone numbers, he was texting me, telling me how his offer still stands, frequently making eye contact with me as he does so. It was so brazen and unsettling. Boba would text things like, are you sure you're still straight? I really know how to please a man, and no one will ever know. I would reply to him saying, I'm not into you, and you're married, act like it please. But those texts fell on blind eyes and ears as he continued to harass me. I began to ignore him while he continuously blew up my phone, made eye contact with me, signaling for me to look at my phone with his eyes, and eventually began to put his nasty feet on mine, trying to play footsie under the table. Okay, right. I've never got this, right? Give me one sec. Alright, so I'm gonna be honest with you. As a dude who's dated not women, right? This is not something women generally do, right? I've never, ever come across a woman who does this. You know? I don't know if it's just me. Like, guys, have you ever come across a woman who does this? But whenever I speak to a gay friend who's had awkward things with men, they do tend to do it. It's odd. I wonder whether it's a repressed thing, like they're just doing it secretly, because it's like the only sort of touching they can get with another man. I don't know. But it's something that I've noticed only men tend to do. Am I right or am I wrong? I don't know. Anyway, I put both of my feet under my chair, and at the first opportunity, I text Red and tell him I need to leave. I made up some excuse at why I needed to go back to the barracks and how I rode there with Red, so I had to ride back with him, ending his session before we could try out the combat. I don't remember anything about Pathfinder or the character that we never played, and that's his fault. And by his, you know, obviously, I mean Bobert. I'm a physically fit man, 6 foot 1 inch tall, and capable of running 3 miles, 4.8 kilometers for you redcoats, in less than 19 minutes. I was being harassed by a short, weak-minded, weak-bodied, weak-willed man with no power or rank over me, and I never did anything to report this individual. Even with multiple witnesses and evidence, and it being a person no one in the unit respected, it didn't feel manly to report this guy, like it was getting someone else to fight your battles for you, and that was somehow a weakness. I should have reported this degenerate. I expressed this to everybody who might have similar issues. Report this behaviour, if not for yourself, for others. If you're strong enough to deal with it, the next person may not be as strong as you, and they may pay the price. I would have gotten into the hobby sooner if it weren't for this creep. I didn't get into it until about 6 or 7 years later. Sorry if this hobby nightmare was a bit too extreme. I'd forgive you if you didn't read it. Maybe some people out there need to hear this. Maybe people that were in my shoes or even Bobert's shoes need to know that they have to correct this behaviour, because if not you, then who? Cheers. Ralderon. I agree. No, this is why I read it out. I mean, Hobby Nightmares is the place for this, right? It's not called Hobby Comedy Time. We do have lots of fun Hobby Nightmares, and we will do towards the end of the week, of course. But, like, you know, sometimes it's about dealing with some really, really, really strange people who share this tabletop hobby with us, right? This is one of those people. This is somebody with mental issues, dude, and I'm not going to use them as an excuse by saying, you know what, we need to give them a pass. That's not true, right? Mental issues are not an excuse to be a dick to the people around you and to do really creepy shit to them, right? This guy's a douche, but I still do believe he's damaged in some way, right? There's something going on here. How he survived Marine training, I have absolutely no idea, right? Because I've known Marines, dude. Well, UK Marines anyway, and one guy who was in the US. They are not soft people. These are dudes who run through brick walls for other people, right? You know, generally people who, like you seem to be in these Hobby Nightmares, right? So I'm not quite sure how that works out, how he got past all of the recruitment and all that sort of stuff. This guy should have been found out way sooner, but maybe they're just taking anybody these days. I don't know. Marines, in the chat, let me know what's going on here. Well, how did this guy get past everything? Let me know what you think. And, yeah, you should have reported him. You should have. Because you hit the nail on the head, right? Just because you can... There are dudes out there who would legitimately self-delete themselves if this kind of thing happened to them. They're that scared of being gay. Right? There are dudes out there who are so repressed or, you know, homophobic, right? That if this happened to them, they would harm themselves. And that sounds weird, it's true. And just because you can stand up to the heat and you're a much stronger person, you know, these macho men in the army, in the Marines, if this kind of thing happened to them, it may start, you know, they may not be able to get it out of their head and do something silly. So you're right. You're completely right. And I think only somebody with your background of things happening to them when they were younger, you're able to say, look, you know, here, this is not going to fly for me. Like, and you're not going to break me, son. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to be nowhere near me. But there are dudes out there who've never been confronted with it before, right? Who've never been challenged in that way before and won't be able to handle it. Because with a Marine and with a soldier, you can come at them from the outside all day long with physical harm, with, you know, verbal abuse, with a war zone, right? But something as insidious, it's the reason why it's used as a weapon in prison, man, right? Because they're all tough men, for the most part. That's the reason why it's used in prison. It breaks them. It's the one thing that can break them, right? Is abuse on that level. So just because you can get away with it, you're completely right. You should have reported this guy because he needed reporting and he needed to get out of there. Where there's a lot of, you know, susceptible men, and there are in the army, right? You are all mentally very strong in terms of dealing with certain things, but there are real blind spots to being in the army. A lot of you guys are very susceptible to shit like this because you're not used to it, right? You've been holed up for a long time, training and discipline and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, you should have reported it, but I'm glad you recognized that. And if you are in a similar situation, guys, report this kind of thing. Get it out of there, right? We don't need it. And we can get the person who's doing it some help too, because they might need it, you know? They might need it. I struggle to see any empathy with them, but they might need it. You know, we don't know. Anyway, I love you a long time. I will speak to you tomorrow for some more, or on Friday for some more Hobby Nightmares. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll speak to you very soon, right? See you later. Bye now.